Hello, I'm Bruce Zimmerman, and this is the Open Line Garden Show podcast for this week. It's been a long, dry spring. Now, for some people, they say it couldn't be dry enough because they don't want rain. They just would love to have nice sunshine, etc. But we're a little on the dry side, and the plant material is showing it. And it's showing it in the fact that it's developing later and slower. But when it does pop, it all pops together, and because there isn't been the wind and the rain to knock down a lot of the flowers, they seem to be blooming longer once they do bloom, and the normal bloom cycle is now overlapping. So what we've got is a compacted bloom season, but it's becoming in segments. It's almost like a chapter, and then there's sort of a time period, and then there's another bloom cycle. And what we're looking at is, well, we had the early daffodils doing just wonderful until the snow hit, and the very early daffodils in my yard were all bent over and buried in the snow. Now, they were fine, and they continued to bloom after the snow melted, but of course, most of them didn't come back up again. But if they weren't in bloom, or they were ready to bloom but hadn't quite shown color yet, they seem to have managed to survive the weight of the wet snow and have bloomed standing up. But again, with the sudden heat, they shortened down the length of bloom time. So it has been one crazy spring. Now, the magnolias usually bloom white star, then the pink star, and then we get the Soulangeanas, the pink and the purples, and then the yellow. Well, that all got compressed, and there was a time period when they were all in bloom. And, of course, now the white and the pink have finished, but the yellow and the pink and purple are just starting to finish because of the heat and the wind, and now a little bit of rain. So it gets to be a little crazy. The lawns generally responded this spring only if you used a cheap fertilizer that released nitrogen very, very quickly. Now, this is environmentally not a good thing. It's not that great for the lawn, but it did work and did respond, and people with nice green lawns that they're cutting like crazy usually use this type of fertilizer. If you use the long-term, slow-release fertilizers, particularly the SCUs, which are sulfur-coated urea, then they didn't break down quite as quickly. And even at a heavier rate, you still weren't getting the response you normally get. So if you are using a really good quality fertilizer, you're probably wondering, what the heck should I do now? Well, don't do anything. Pray for a little bit of moisture and rain, which we're supposed to be getting this weekend. And if that's not enough by next weekend, and we're starting to get more dry weather, then I would probably, as crazy as it sounds, water your lawn. Not the gardens, just the lawn. I found that a lot of the perennials have been delayed, so the hostas are starting to pop up, peonies are popping up. So it's not a bad time to go in and divide and move. So that's what you should be doing. Now, it's going to be a rainy time, so don't get yourself cold and wet. So pick and choose your times. The showers are supposed to be a little sporadic. So don't get wet, don't get too cold, and make sure that you prepare the soil really well. Remember, every time you move a perennial, you always super prepare the soil because it's a long-term move into a new home for that perennial. And also the old area can be rejuvenated and either left or, of course, replanted with something else. I have moved some shrubs lately. What I did was I moved some buddleias. Now, admittedly, these are dwarf buddleias that had seeded themselves in my garden. Thank you to my neighbor who provided the seed. But of course, they were never going to be in the right place, correct? So what I did was I did wait until they were showing some strength, a little bit of growth, and then I went in and I did pot them. Now, some of them wilted a little bit from the shock of moving. They have seemed to have come back, so we'll see. But I don't seem to have any problems with them dying. So they're showing no signs of a great deal of stress. So maybe it's not a bad time to start thinking about doing a quick move. If you've got something that's not very critical or expensive to your design, if you've got to move them, I would go for it now. In fact, probably this weekend, even though it's going to be sort of cool and rainy, it might not be a bad time to do it. The whole thing with the daffodils, the tulips, and the hyacinths is that they need to be deadheaded. Now, most people don't know how to deadhead, but all you do is snap the head of the petals, and you'll see inside that swollen part of both the daffodil and the tulip. But with the hyacinth, what you want to do is you want to put the stalk of the flowers between your two middle fingers in your hand and pull gently up. Now, this is as they're finishing, so they're going to come off. You're going to end up leaving the stem and taking off only just what looks like the flowers. And that's all you need to do with those. Remember, bulbs can be fed as soon as they finish blooming, and they would use a bulb food or a vegetable food, something that will produce a stronger, bigger bulb for next year. Of course, bigger bulbs, better storage of food, and that means more and bigger flowers. All of this should be done now. Now, the other thing that I'm seeing is a lot of the trees are into bloom, a lot of the maples. The other thing I'm seeing is that all the fruit trees seem to be blooming all at the same time. So this week and this weekend, it might be a spectacular time for a drive if you're going to see color, but of course with the rain. Because we have apples, pears, cherries in bloom, crab apples, the hoppas, the profusions, they're all out in full bloom. So even the peaches, nectarines, and plums are in bloom. The ornamental cherries, the double weeping, the Kwanzaa double cherries, they're all in bloom right now. So a lot of bloom is going on all of a sudden. And with the cool, wet weekend, the cool will hold the flowers, but the rain will actually knock the flowers down a bit. So you're going to have to sort of judge your time in your day and your location of where you're going to go see all the flowers, particularly here in Niagara. So that's some of the things that you can be doing this weekend. I would be making sure that your lawn, if it's not cut, can be cut probably sometime on a nice day this coming week. And you want to cut a little long so that you have a good photosynthetic area so that the crowns will spread and help to fill in and thicken up because they have been so slow to respond. I'm Bruce Zimmerman, and this is the Open Line Garden Show podcast for this week.